Welcome to the webinar. This is part one of a two-part data series. And you're like, really? Can you talk about data over two webinars? Look, I'll stretch it to 10 if you ask me nicely. The reason why we've split it into two is because when we were going through the content, we realized there's a lot and we don't want you all losing the will to live. So, but also we're going to keep you stringing along a bit. You know, I like Star Wars. Although that would be a big ask, 60 hours worth of content. So some of you know who Wayne and I are, not because we are going to be at the Oscars on Sunday, just because we've been about a little bit. Not going to tell you how long. You'll have to check our LinkedIn profile for that, and you'll be shocked because I don't look a day over 21, do I? Thank God for Teams soft focus. We're obviously here to generate some business, so let's just bear in mind that while we're talking about data, it's because we are looking at this from the lofty height of Bullhorn training, automation coaching and building. We're doing a lot of build work at the moment, and also we have a really cool vision product which helps our clients realize their vision with Bullhorn. Now grab your little phones and use that QR code to get yourself onto our next recruiter tips webinar, where we are fixated on finding more deals within our Bullhorn database. Yeah, absolutely. There's money to be made from the data that you've got already. And when I was talking to my trainers and saying, you know, what's the hot topic right now, as if I don't know, they said, let's do a webinar specifically on how to find more jobs to work within the Bullhorn system. Bring it on. Yeah. Because why work the jobs that you found that are cold when you could work the really, really hot ones? So that's what we're interested in. And again, we have these little QR codes, so keep your cameras handy because there's loads of tips. And if you are in the job of automating within your business, and you want some very cute tips in less than 1 minute on how to build great automations or how to think strategically, then there's loads of 1-minute tips on our websites. If you are in the job of helping with recruiter productivity and recruiter efficiency, whether it be on LinkedIn, using AI, using Bullhorn, we've got loads of 1-minute tips on our website as well. So grab those. On to the next slide. Right, I'm obviously interested as well. We always ask this question because return on investment is incredibly important, as is return on effort, which we talk about a lot as well. But when I'm talking about return on investment and I'm talking about Bullhorn and automation, what springs to mind for you? Click the option that most closely fits where automation is from a return on investment perspective for you and your lovely business. Tick the box. And it's never been more important that automation makes you money. It's never been more important that automation negates the need for you to buy lots of other systems. It's never been more important for automation to give you choices over the kinds of people that you hire into your business and whether or not you scale in the traditional recruitment way, which is I need to double my turnover, so I'll double my headcount, which often means, and I'll double my stress because I'll double my HR nightmares. Caveat, I'm not anti-human, but I'm absolutely anti-recruitment leaders and their managers losing sleep and having really, really stressful businesses, when actually automation could just enable the recruiters that they do have to be happier and more effective, especially with the way the world is right now. So I'll have a look at the answers to that later on, but thank you very much for answering those questions for me. Now, some of you have already booked this because I've messaged you, some of you, whilst you've been registering, so I've been a good girl. Some of you have already got your battle plan calls booked with Wayne. I equate it to a private dance, if that's what you're thinking. Yeah, a private dance with Wayne over Teams, people, nothing in the flesh, where you'll get 30 minutes with him to talk about what you're doing with from automation perspective, to help you understand potentially where automation is going, because we have the inside scoop, and also to get ideas from Wayne about maybe the gaps between where you need to be and where you are. So put the word battle in your chat and I will follow this webinar with some options to get Wayne booked in for a 30-minute chat. Remember, we like paying it forward. It's not going to be a sales call. And someone's put an exclamation, you bet. But this is all about making sure that you've got time to really think about this stuff, because these webinars are great. I love them, but it's about what you do with them, isn't it? And it's about having a strategy. So that's great. Thank you very much. What's on the agenda today, Wayne?
So when I started mapping this out, I realized there was too much to squeeze into one webinar. So I've broken this down into looking at the issues and looking at why data is important. I think it's a massively overlooked challenge that businesses have. We're going to talk about the what's in it for people, looking at your challenges. We're going to look at where you could or should be starting when you're starting to think about your data management strategy, data cleansing strategy. I'm going to look at standards, an area that I'm very passionate about. And I think if you have standards, then it's easier to communicate those across your business. I have got some automation suggestions that I'm going to be talking to you about as well. These are hints and tips and ideas that I think you should have switched on as a bare minimum to begin with. The next webinar we're going into a lot more detail around the specific and more detailed automations that we can do. Obviously, there's the 1-minute tip that you guys can watch in your own time. That's the agenda for today.
Okay, lovely, fantastic. Right then, we ran a webinar last month and we asked people, you may have even been on it, describe your data, and it was quite hilarious actually, the words that came back. Let me just find the poll. Oh, in fact, just chuck the words into your chat for me. Describe your data. Go into chat and give me one word to describe the state of your data. I even got we got battleground was on one of them. Dinosaur just popped up in the middle of the chat as well, which I thought was hilarious. But it was interesting what people were saying. Very few of the people on that particular webinar said money making. And I think we need to appreciate that if the recruitment industry hasn't got its head around how to make money from data, it's definitely behind the curve, because we know because the Tesco Club Card was the kind of beginning of all of this, wasn't it, all those years ago? We know that our data is worth a lot of money. Yeah, we give it away very freely, don't we? But we know that Facebook and all of those lovely big businesses, they're trading off data. It's worth squillions of pounds. But as an industry in recruitment, we just like, thanks for the emoji, we just like collecting it. And I did a lovely webinar with the lovely SourceFlow team a couple of months back. I'll send you the link after this webinar, where we were talking about businesses and recruitment businesses and how much data they've actually got. And I always go back to my younger days where we didn't have as much data. We didn't have as much opportunity to store it or hoard it, but we managed it incredibly well, and we charged a lot more and we placed a lot quicker, which I think is interesting to think about. I do think as well that as an industry we've got sucked into the belief that the more data we have, the more successful we are likely to be. But again, no one's gonna give you a sticker for having a nice chocker database, but your bank manager is going to be very pleased if you have got a very steady pipeline. So that's interesting. Thank you for that. There's a blog here that I want you to take away as well, because we don't want to squeeze everything in. This is a thought leadership webinar, if I'm allowed to call us that. Lofty high, I've just put myself on. But there's actually a guy called Dunbar. And we read his thesis on data and people and relationships, and we've applied it to the recruitment industry. Grab that link. And I'd love your feedback on it more than anything. But we've actually won clients off the back of that blog who read that blog and went, oh yeah, I get it now. Because actually, how many points of data do you actually need within your business? Yeah. And are we spending more time collecting it and not enough time doing something with it? So that's something else I want you to think about. And the stats that I always bring up are there for you to take photographs of or grab later. Certainly if you are in the job of operational excellence, or I saw a client of mine today has actually got operational ninja as their job title. Gorgeous. But nice. If your job is compliance, making things work better, and I'm talking about humans as well, then these stats are important. Because if the muscle memory within your business when you get a job is to go and advertise it, LinkedIn and job boards are going to say thanks very much, but equally 50% of the candidates who apply are pants. So why are we doing this? Self-flagellation. Look it up. Why are we spending so long looking for stuff we've already got? Why are we spending so long placing from external sources? We're always talking about Bullhorn first. Next slide, Wayne. It's a big deal for us, and we get clients regularly saying, can you get me to Bullhorn first? Absolutely, but it does start with data trust. Data trust is very, very important. Okay. So whilst Wayne's running this with you, and you're cleaning up your data, I want you to be thinking about, what are you going to do with that data set once it's clean? Where are you going to focus your time and attention? Where are you going to focus your effort, your return on effort? Because as much as I think sourcing is a very important part of a recruiter's role, I think what's more important is speaking and screening and managing and placement and aftercare, all of that stuff. But at the moment, with the way that recruiters work, is they fixate on finding stuff and not enough time on monetizing it and managing it and protecting it. And I think it's getting worse as time goes on. There's obviously a whole list of things here that you can be really assessing in terms of what's important, but a couple of things that are definitely important to us, and Wayne's going to jump in a second. I can see him fidgeting, but we obviously want to source quicker, because I am hearing from more and more clients that internal recruitment teams are getting a little bit sassy and a little bit egotistical. I can do it myself. I've got all these tools, I can do it myself. Whereas actually, what's also happening to recruitment is not only that, but when they have someone leaving their business, the data's not in a good enough state just to pass it on, or the data's not in a good enough state to say, I've got myself sorted, thanks. And you can't just hand over those pipelines to newer recruiters. Equally as well, you know, I must stress this, you know, there's no perfect system out there. So if you bought Bullhorn and you're annoyed that you have to buy other stuff, welcome to the world of phones, cars, houses, holidays. Add-ons are just how it is. Yeah, and just like when you hire a recruitment consultant, you might need other staff within your business as well. So in order for integrations to work better, in order for processes and humans to work more effectively, you've got to monetize your data. Absolutely. Talk to us, Wayne, about AI generative tools, and try saying that 3 times after your beers on Friday night, people. And also talk to us about Bullhorn Search and Match.
So the just to reiterate what Lisa was talking about integrations, I've got experience whereby, because the data is not correct in Bullhorn, therefore the other systems that's feeding into are also incorrect. And the classic one is obviously a timesheeting system. How many people have a problem with timesheets? I've got experience of, I've got a case study of one client that we worked with. 90% of 1,000 timesheets every Monday morning had an error against them. So every single Monday morning, the team of 6 or 7 finance people would come in, and they would have to phone every single candidate to get it updated. And what we figured out was the problem, ironically, was the recruiters not putting the placement on correctly in the first place. Yeah, the rate or the start date, etc., are all incorrect. So again, thinking about those little challenges that you have and how data flows now between systems. And Lisa talked about everything that's been plugged together. Well, if that's not plugging, or the data is not being inputted correctly, it's always going to cause a problem. We spoke to the lovely Raymond Penny yesterday, looked at the Kylo AI tool.
It's cute.
It's very cute. It's very nice. I'm very, very excited to get my paws on that at some point in the next couple of days. Raymond made a really interesting point, and it really sort of sprung something onto me. AI generative tools and AI in general is going to be based around data. You know, here's a candidate and here's a job spec. Now match these 2 things together. Well, if you're not getting the data into the system correctly in the first place, that generative AI tool, which is supposed to be saving people anywhere between 10 and 20 hours a week of saved time, will be pointless and it will be useless. Yeah. All that you're going to end up is generating a huge pile of rubbish. Was that funny little emoji gone again? So that's the idea about AI generative tools. Rubbish in equals rubbish out. We have to get that message across through to the business. It has to come down to the recruitment layer, so they understand the value of what's going to happen. You are at risk, if you've not got this data strategy in place now, of turning on AI, everyone going, it doesn't work, and then switching it off and not realizing the benefits. The root cause isn't the AI tool. The root cause is what you guys are doing in the front end side of things. Bullhorn Search and Match, obviously their new Search and Match tool, which is going to be very much AI focused as well. That's being launched. Again, it requires good quality matching algorithms. It's looking at data. Without good quality data, it's a problem. The other thing as well is that if you are putting your data incorrectly, there's a stat that Lisa mentioned earlier on, which is 40 days to place a candidate as opposed to 60 days if you find them externally. That all comes down to, again, having the right level of data into your system. And the other thing as well that I identified, levers data. Levers don't destroy pipelines, but they don't enable the pipeline either. When they leave, either that information leaves with them, that puts your business at risk. As leaders, that puts your data quality and your pipelines at risk. What you need to be doing is looking at that data and going, well, who should we reassign that data to? It's one of the things that I think is really important.
Think about your 3 C's, people. Think about the trust that you want your consultants to have on your data and your systems and your processes. Think about the trust that you want your candidates and clients to have in your businesses. And it does come from how you manage and monetize their data and what you do with it that counts. Let's move forward, Wayne.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about dirty data, Wayne. Talk to us. Dirty.
Dirty data prevents automation error and human turbo, or dirty data prevents this. Mentioned it a second ago. If we don't have relatively good quality data, then AI and automation will struggle. It won't give you the results that you're expecting it to give you. But on top of that, it'll slow the human down. So like we've just talked about a second ago, 90% of timesheets, there was somebody sat there, or 6, 7 people sat there every single Monday morning just calling people. What a waste of human resources when it could have been fixed by the recruiter putting the information into the system to begin with correctly. So we want to create turbo. I'm sure you guys want to make more placements. I'm sure your candidates and clients want better communications. Dirty data prevents that. It's not, it hinders the recruitment life cycle. It doesn't speed it up. There we go.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's all sorts of stats that we can publish, and again, just take these and use them to educate your teams and get them to understand why data is not an ad. I mean, they can turn it into an admin job and sit and navel gaze at the data all day long, and they can collect more and then advertise and bring in candidates that they've already got and create a very, very unwieldy experience. Or they can go, do you know what, actually my data is my currency. My clients are paying for access to my data. My candidates are paying with their CVs for access to my client data, but it does decay if we don't do something with it. So let's move on.
Okay.
This is my dig up stupid model. Some of you have seen this before. This is just something in my younger days. I used to do a lot of work around operations and marketing and stuff. And it was very clear to me that often recruiters were given either complete free rein and responsibility over the entire database. There was just very little rules of engagement, standards, whatever you want to call it. And as a result of that, it never got done. I'm a big fan, and Wayne's going to talk to you a little bit about this. You know, there's a lot of dirt in your database, and it's normally sticky and oily, and it pulls you down. But there's also a big fixation on trying to get even more because it's so dirty. I need more. I can't find anything. I'll go and get some more. Whereas actually there is a green thread of data in your database if you know where to look. You've recently placed candidates and clients and stopping them from falling into the dormant zone and then getting dirty in that FOMO area. It's about focusing your time and attention on that green space and getting your recruiters to do the same, but also making sure that you're using automation as well to make sure that anything that does maybe drop into that dirty zone, you pull it back out again and you do something with it. So that's just something for you to think about.
I'm going to talk about this in a bit as well. So common challenges that I see when I'm talking to clients about automation, when we're doing our implementations or we're doing our buddy programs and we're focused around data quality. There are some real common themes that I think if businesses are able to get their heads around and they're able to action those thoughts and those challenges, then you'll have a good, successful or more successful data quality strategy. The first thing that I come across a lot is recruiters see entering data into Bullhorn as admin. It's not admin, it's part of their job. And I think that's something that leaders and managers need to sort of reinforce. We want you, here's our standard operating procedures, talking a lot about SOPs currently. This is the way in which we do our operations and do our business. We need this information to go into Bullhorn at these times. And I think by just removing that it's admin mentality across the business, it immediately wipes out probably about 50% of the challenges that will come up. The big thing that recruiter says they don't have time, or alternatively, they don't see the value of what they're doing. Again, they see it as admin. Whereas if you've got Bullhorn analytics, and a lot of you will have, some of you will see things like jobs pipeline. Some of you may have a wonderful big pipeline, but is that data actually correct? You know, have you closed down all those inactive jobs that are not there? Actually, do you know exactly what your pipeline actually is? So recruiters not having time, I think normally it's an excuse. Yes, people are very busy, but it doesn't take much time to add in a few fields when you're speaking to the candidate or spending 2 or 3 minutes afterwards validating and checking that data. The long-term benefits are massive, but we very much focused around the short-term gains. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have to get across the business.
Let me just interject though. I think it's the challenge, Wayne, that I think a lot of recruiters have is it feels like admin because it is admin and it's administrative and it's time consuming and it's mandatory and look at my face, I'm using lots of words that are not exciting. Data can be sexy too, but I do think it's around the time that it takes for them to do it, how difficult it might be. We are regularly doing what we call our Bullhorn visions and sprints with our clients, where we're getting the recruiters back at the heart of the process and helping them understand, but also deconfiguring Bullhorn to make it easier to use so that recruiters don't use the word clunky and don't see systems and process as an admin as something they do when they've got time. It just becomes a more intuitive thing.
Absolutely.
Something to throw out there.
Some of the things I'm going to come on later on to talk about are some of those things that Lisa just mentioned there. One of the big areas, sometimes your candidate database may not be owned, i.e. these are not my candidates. So therefore, loads of candidates get dumped into the database and then nobody engages with them, nobody checks them, nobody's validating the data. The most successful data strategies I've seen is whereby we're specializing our recruiters. Wayne, you're responsible for Java developers into the hotel industry or the leisure industry, whatever that's going to be. I'm more likely to take ownership over that data. I'm going to see the value of it. I'm going to be able to source from that more quickly, as opposed to loads of stuff into the database. Nobody's managing it, nobody's owning it. On that basis, then more stuff goes in. When I run a search, I get loads of rubbish back. And again, that's one of the problems. We try and capture everything at the start. I interviewed a gentleman who did a load of automation for a very, very large global recruiter, and he used this word. I love this phrase. They layered the information into the database. They didn't try and capture everything up front, which is what we tend to do. We have 27 million mandatory fields, and when we put a candidate on, we have to fill all this information in, but we may not know all of that information from the start. It may have been somebody that I saw that I like the look of and would like to speak to them, but I either don't put them into Bullhorn or I put them into Bullhorn and then fill in all the fields with loads and loads of rubbish. Again, try and think about the mandatory fields that you're using. And if we can, start thinking about when do we request information from those people. The big one for me is standards. Do we have standards? Is that very clearly communicated across the business? So when I interview a candidate, what is expected of me as a recruiter or as a manager or as a leader? What should be in the Bullhorn database? I go back to an experience that I had when I was in full-time employment. The business that I worked in went and bought a beautiful little recruitment business, and they had very, very clear standards around data. Every time you interviewed a candidate, there were 6 key bits of information you must have added. How well did they speak? How well did they dress? Did they talk intelligently? Did they look enthusiastic about the role? That is really clever information. And what they also did was that every night the managers were responsible for checking 5 random records that had been added that day. And that kept people on their toes. But that was down to managers understanding what they needed to do and then forcing the recruiters and calling out bad behavior. When you have got standards, there might be that apathy towards the standards. Oh, I'll do it later, or I haven't got round to it. Or alternatively, I've just mentioned, managers know what they should be doing, but they don't have time or they don't feel the need to call up their recruiters, or they might be a little bit scared. I'm not going to interrupt my best recruiter and tell them what to do. I don't want them to leave or give a problem. Another common issue that I see is Bullhorn configuration. It's very difficult if you've got 27,000 fields in the edit page of a candidate record and you've got to scroll up and down as you're trying to speak to people. That can cause some apathy towards, it's really difficult to fill that information in. Yeah, there are some hints and tips that I'm going to show you in a second that'll basically be able to fix that. The other thing that I see a lot of is that you allow other people to use other systems. I'm going to call it the word Excel here. We allow recruiters to export their data and import that into an Excel spreadsheet. Here's a list of all of my hot candidates. You know, we're not training recruiters up on the best way of using Bullhorn to show what their hot candidates are. You can do that with 2 clicks of a button. And it's better that they use Bullhorn because all the data is stored within Bullhorn. It's not in multiple spreadsheets. It's not a GDPR nightmare. It's not a risk to the business that when they leave, they take all that data with them. So again, that allowing people to use third-party systems, I think, is a challenge. I've got their hot list versus saved search. It's just an example of we allow people to put stuff into hot lists, and there's maybe a better way of dealing with that. So again, training and understanding how you can use Bullhorn. Users just not trained. It's a real common one. We don't tell people how to use the system. We don't tell people what our standards are. We don't constantly check up on them. And then the other one that I see, I'm going to say rarely, but it's something that when you have this, it can cause a big problem. When you're trying to cleanse the database, leadership don't care. You know, there's that apathy at a leadership level, which is, oh, sorry, just let them get on with it. You know, we don't want to interrupt them, that we're earning enough money as it currently stands. The challenge always comes, what happens when you're not earning enough money? When you haven't got enough jobs coming through, and then you start looking at the data and going, oh, we can't really do anything with this. The problem's already happened. You know, there's no way of getting around that. So those are the most common challenges I feel that stops people from, or a business having a really good quality database. So I'll ask a very quick question. From those, and this has got a poll hopefully, from those, and I think you can mark as many as you want, which ones do you feel are your biggest challenges? Because from this, by identifying what your challenges are, that will help you start identifying potentially what your issue or your challenge is and what your solution may need to be, or how you approach this data quality situation. Give you a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds on that. Okay. And close that down, Lisa, that'd be great. Cleansing data. If you're responsible, if one of your projects this year has been, we need to cleanse our data, coming from management, we need to cleanse our data, it's going to be really hard if you don't have an appropriate data strategy. And I use the word appropriate here because every recruitment business is different. Just because you've worked at one recruitment business, you go to another recruitment business, the requirements of what it is you're trying to find out may be slightly different. So as an example, I'll use things like, you know, healthcare. The availability of that person would be really, really important. If you're a locums, a business, you need to understand when they're available, when can they work. You want to be able to source those people quickly. If you're in IT, technology, then understand the skills and the technology that those people use would be really, really important. So that's the kind of things that I think when you're looking at data and your data strategy, thinking about what is important and what should be done. Where do we start? I love this picture. It's a lovely elephant. And Lisa used to tell me this, you never try and eat the whole elephant. We've got 4 million candidates on the database. We're going to cleanse all of them. Yeah, it's going to cause you a big headache. So the idea here is that you want to start identifying areas and focus, and you want to come up with a strategy that you can communicate first and foremost to the business. Yeah, that may be we focus on a region, it may be we focus in a specific data set, whatever that's going to be. But the idea here is that we don't try and fix everything all at once. I've got a client, we've got 3 million candidates on the database currently, multinational clients, wonderful client to work with, but they've got different regions. So we're going to need to think about the different data strategies for each region. Yeah, so what do we start? Well, we're going to start with one of the regions, get that fixed, realize the opportunities, the challenges that we had, and then hopefully we'll be able to replicate that very quickly. Yeah, as opposed to try and tell everyone that we need to cleanse the data. So here we've got some options. Where do we start? So first thing you have to do is you need to understand where your challenge is. Why is your data dirty? Now, is there a problem between the chair and the keyboard? That's what that acronym stands for. Is there a skill or a will problem? They know what they need to do, but they're not doing it. So again, the skill or the will is one of those things. The other thing that you can be looking at as well from a challenge perspective, think about the layout of your data in Bullhorn. Yeah, are you making it simple for them to engage with, or are you making it really complicated? One of the best examples I've seen, you've got the ability to have 5, I think, headers within Bullhorn on the edit page. So what a client thought was, well, why don't we just say header number 1, new candidate, header number 2, interviewed or screened candidate, header number 3, interview, as in client interview, then header number 4 was placement. And they had the different fields in those sections so that the recruiter knew, I'm interviewing this candidate, I need to ensure that this data is completed, as opposed to them having to figure out and jump all around the edit page to try and find that data. Really love that concept. They made it really simple for the recruiters to engage with. So sometimes you just need to think about what data it is we're wanting. How do we make it simple for the recruiter to input that? Another client basically said, we only want 6 key fields. If we've got those 6 key fields, yeah, the rest of the data, it'll be useful, but those are the main fields that we need. They just moved them to the top of the edit page. So all they did, everyone knew that those 6 fields had to be completed no matter what. So think about your challenge, and then as soon as you understand your challenge, then you can start thinking about opportunities to improve that. The other bit area that you need to think about, thinking about the big elephant. We're not going to try and eat the whole elephant. What we are going to do is identify where the pain specifically is. Is it we're not sourcing enough? Well, on that basis, let's focus on candidates. Have we not got enough candidates or not got enough jobs? Well, on that basis, we need to think about the data strategy around sales contacts and how we manage that new business development process. So again, I've got some options there around what the pain is. The other area that we need to think about is the focus. So again, lots and lots of data on the database. So we could fix the old data, the historic data, but we've not thought about the new data going on the database. And again, that's making the database dirty again all the time. Yeah. Or alternatively, are we more focused around the current data set, the people that we're working with at this precise moment in time? So again, you will have different strategies around those 3 different focused areas. That's really important. Standards, you have to agree what your standards are. And again, think about the pain, the challenge, the focus, that will naturally then start leading you into what are our standards? What do we expect our recruiters to do? Is it well communicated? And then we look at the roles and responsibilities. What is the role and responsibility of data at a leadership level? How do we get them involved? If you've got a very apathetic leadership about data, how can we get them more interested in this? What can we do to tell them that we're not making enough money, or our pay rates are less than our charge rates, or pay rates are more than our charge rates? Those sorts of bits of information that will get them excited and get them engaged. Managers need to be able to help enforce and manage and tell recruiters what's expected of them, and recruiters need to do it. Then there's the back office team, the finance team, probably never touch Bullhorn. They think it's too dirty. Well, what can we do to encourage them to get involved in that data cleansing exercise as well? There is a problem with credit control. Well, don't just put it in the finance system. We need to let the recruiters know there's a problem. So let's get them into Bullhorn and let's put that information in there as well. Talked about standards. If we pop all these down currently, where do we start from a standards perspective? Well, you need to understand what's important. You need to understand what value that data is going to add at each stage of the recruitment lifecycle. These had that wonderful graph, that little round circular workflow earlier on. So, when a new candidate goes on, when we screen a candidate, when we place a candidate, we can ensure that we've thought all of that through. Then it makes it easier for us to communicate that to the business. It makes it easier for us then to manage that through Bullhorn or through automation specifically. Updating codes. If we're asking the recruiters to update the information correctly, or we're going to use automation to send a survey to those people, we want them to code themselves correctly. Have we got the correct values in place? Or have we got too many values? Are there 27 different ways of saying project manager when one will do? So updating your skills, your categories, your industries, your specialities, or any other field whereby there's multiple select or single select options is a really, really important process. I'd suggest you reformat your screens. I've already mentioned that. Get the data in a position where it's easy to update. You can then, once you've done all that, you can then start training your recruiters. You can communicate your standards. You can tell managers what they should be doing and how they can be checking, how they reinforcing that. Lisa did a project many moons ago when we were employed. We asked the recruiters to increase the data quality by 5% a week. There was a lovely, lovely project around that. The first person got to 100% cleanse of their data. They immediately basically then got a bottle of champagne, I think it was, or maybe in a holiday. I can't remember what it was. But
this was about 4 million years ago when Wayne and I were ahead of the curve in terms of data and understanding it. But the reason we started small is because we knew if it was like, let's clean the database. Well, again, I'd be the first one to say, don't waste your time. You might actually only need to clean a percentage to chuck a few more million quid on your pipeline. But I think often in operational roles, and both Wayne and I have sat in those seats, you do try and eat that elephant all at once, and you get quite tired and quite frustrated quite quickly because the whole business isn't on your side. So you've got to break this down. And what we did do is we broke it down into months, and we checked it every month, and people started to feel and see the benefits to them. This is a long time ago, so it will definitely work now. But it even got to the stage where certain individuals are using language like, I can't leave this business because the data that I've cleaned is the thing that makes me money, and I'm not going to get that anywhere else. And what we started to see was the leadership then really buying in, because it was giving them more power over how they ran their business and that integrity of their business as well. So the 5% rule for me is really important. It could be 5% a quarter. That might be all you need to put another 50 grand on the board a month. I don't know. But think about it, small things, small incremental gains are massive to businesses.
Yeah. And then after that, it's the enforcement behavior. It's the enforcement about making sure that what you've asked your team to do, what your standards are, that it's being enforced. It's not, don't worry about that, we'll do something different, or just put it into an Excel spreadsheet. The whole business needs to be aligned. I worked with a very senior person who used to work at Hayes, and he tells a wonderful story about he would get calls from junior recruiters, and he was one of the people that set up this big division, big finance division. He would get calls from junior recruiters saying, I tried making a placement with one of your recruiters' data candidates. I couldn't, it was messed up. I couldn't understand it. When you've got that level of interaction and understanding across the business, it makes a big difference. Everyone's responsible for the data, and they're prepared to call, people out when it's not up to spec. The other way you can use enforcement is through automation, obviously. Let's have a quick look at those. So once you've got your strategy and you've got your plan and it's been communicated, what can automation do to help you? So again, looking at the current or the historic options, depending on where you are, what your focus needs to be. If it's new data, applications, new applications, asking a candidate thank you, or saying to a candidate, thank you very much. Can you please complete the survey? Just check your data to make sure it's 100% accurate. It's perfectly acceptable to do that now. I see it a lot. I see a lot of responses on that. Candidates will naturally want to give you that information because they want the job. They want to be able to speak to somebody. So it's a really good opportunity for you to capture and get self-cleansing opportunities in there. New candidates that get added, again, take them on a journey. There's probably slightly different way of approaching that from applications. Maybe somebody that you screened. You might need to consider the use of the source field. I've got this from LinkedIn. Will that be a different communication from, I found somebody on a job board? Yeah, I want to speak to them about this. Be aggressive with automation and reject and remove and archive irrelevant data quickly and efficiently. Don't allow it to sit there and fester. If you know you cannot recruit or employ people that are not eligible to work in the UK or Europe or wherever that's going to be, send them a very polite letdown. You've answered a question that says you can't work here. We're really sorry, we can't help you. However, we're going to look at these other places, could be an option. At least then you can archive it and it doesn't keep your database dirty. From a current perspective, screening validations, great. Most people will have a screening button. They'll have a note type that says screening completed or something like that. Well, if that is added, you can trigger off an automation that says, right, well, I'm expecting the following fields to be updated. Have they got data in them? With this new option within Bullhorn Automation, with the has changed option, you may even be able to check to see whether or not fields have changed to something that you're expecting them to change from. Again, if somebody says they found their own job, well, brilliant. Why don't you ask them what they've found? You know, potentially who they found it through, maybe a bit of market intelligence for you, but getting the candidate to update their job title and the new company, maybe even the salary, they might tell you that would be useful. When most people start, though, is the historic. They always look at that FOMO data, the pyramid that Lisa showed you a second ago. Start the FOMO data, so you can go down that route if you want to. If you're a candidate short, then re-engaging the candidates on your database will be a great option. Build out your standard survey with the standard questions that's going to help you make placements, and that it's not going to be too long for a candidate to complete. 4, 5, 6 questions should be more than enough to get some good quality data there. Advertising jobs, I always put that in there because we can always ask a candidate, is this relevant? If it's not relevant, then they'll basically backtrack and you can ask them what is. Archive stale candidates is a blueprint. Get rid of that data that you cannot do anything with. And then there's hot list data as well. We did a project whereby we had 3,500 candidates that were data scientists living in Munich. That was the title of the hot list. Immediately we knew they were data scientists. That was their job title. They lived in Munich. Munich's in a particular state or county, etc., etc. We inferred all of that information and updated all of that candidate data from a structured data perspective. I'll let you guys go away and look at sales contacts, vacancies and placements. We'll probably do that in a lot more detail in the next session. So, automation next steps. High level, what should you be thinking about? Go and identify what your issues and challenges are. Discuss those with your leadership. Get them on board. Get them to realise what the issue of challenges are. Have a workshop with those people. You know, get the recruiters to understand that as well. Once you understand what the issues is, you've got a remit to basically get it cleansed from leadership. Yeah, then you can start thinking about what the standards are. Yeah, the business needs to come up with what those standards are. Make sure you've got your Bullhorn system configured correctly so it's easy for people to engage with. Simplify your page layouts. Then you can start thinking about building your automations and managing your data proactively. Phew. That's my suggestion with regards to data quality for this first phase. Go away and build your strategy. Go away and build your plan. And that way you'll have a much better long-term success rather than just a short, sharp, let's get the data cleansed. But actually over a short period of time or a long period of time, it just keeps on going.
Grab your mice and just tick a box. Do you feel ready? I mean, obviously we've got part 2 coming next month, and I'll be following in the next 24 hours with a link to that with some ideas as well as the slides from today. But, you know, where are you from a data perspective? Are you still collecting and hoarding and it's messy and it's a battleground? Are you starting to see some chinks of light in, hold on a minute, if we did do a bit of cleaning, oh my God, could we make some money and release reliance on things like LinkedIn and job boards? Or, you know, do you need some help with that? Just tick those boxes and let us know. Okay, I'll close that down. On to the next slide, please, Wayne. We've got a really cool blog about why Boolean sucks as well, because some clients say, oh, I'm not going to bother structuring my codes and my data. And I'm like, you've got to do it. If you want to use automation and AI, you've got to do that. You've got to do it. So there's a quick blog there if you want to grab that and have a read of that later, because Boolean, it's not what it used to be. Is probably what I would say. There's going to be a tip as well. Just very quickly, Wayne, just outline what this tip is, please.
It's a tip to talk about how you can identify using searching within Bullhorn relevant data or dirty data and doing something with. Again, it's a 1-minute tip. Matt's recorded that for us. Go away and have a look at that.
Absolutely. One of the many on our website as well. I'm interested in what battles you're trying to fight this year. I want to understand. I want you to tick some boxes. They're imminently about to come up. Tell us which webinars you actually would really want to attend, or which ones do you want your recruiters to attend? We're always on the market for understanding what battles you're trying to fight. So tick the boxes which most closely represent what you want to achieve in the next sort of like 60, 90, 120 days. And we'll do our best to accommodate those. And while you're filling those out, ladies and gents, let's just wrap up very quickly. So remember, this was part 1 of a part 2 series. We're obviously still going to be building out the content in terms of lots more automation ideas. So please sign up once I send you that link. Bear in mind, we've still got recruitment hit trials available to all. So let us know if you want to have a play with the system. If you are on a mission this year to get your recruiters experienced and new, using Bullhorn more effectively, being better recruiters, weaponizing LinkedIn rather than just spending all their time on it, just becoming better salespeople, our recruitment hit system is really good for that. Bear in mind as well, we've got some fans who love what we do, so we're going to brag about it while we've got access to you. But we're all about efficiency with Bullhorn, automating whatever gets in the way of a good day. Yeah, whatever gets in the way of great relationships, automate it. Go to our website and grab some more tips. There's lots more where those came from today. And I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar in March. And ideally as well, our next recruiter productivity webinar, which is all about if you're in a job short market. We'd love you to see you there. Have a great rest of week, everyone.
Great week, guys.